There are 4 verses at the end of Canto 16 of Saundarananda that discuss what's to be lost and what's to be gained by not making effort or by making effort. And the first 2 of those verses are more the stick, and the last 2 of the verses are more the carrot. But the what's under discussion anyway is effort, vidyā, persevering effort, heroic effort. The word viryā is cognate with virility, so in that sense it suggests manly effort or heroic effort. And it's totally the opposite teaching to the understanding that emptiness is about nihilism. Of course, what gets promoted deliberately, or as you come to understand with the scamdemic, which it turns out was a total hoax from the beginning. There was never any pandemic. It was a complete fabrication, a samskara, a work of conditioning, a construct. So what's that shed light on really is the role of propaganda and disinformation in how the powers that be govern us. And I'm becoming increasingly convinced that though Britain is regarded as being America's poodle or lapdog, it's the old undead British Empire that's behind it all. Because as a small maritime nation with limited resources, we've used intelligence. That's been our strong point for 500 years. Intelligence, propaganda, colour revolutions, psyops, Tavistock operations, MK Ultra. It all comes back to our British cunning, and we hide behind our supposedly big brother America, whereas in fact we spent the whole of the 20th century having never really given up on America being our colony, inveigling our way into the various American power structures. And so it's in that light you can understand the role of kind of Christmas Humphreys, Alan Watts, the Theosophists, D.T. Suzuki, the great and the good in the world of Zen. Their function really has been to promote the false notion that their emptiness is all about nihilism. Become a Buddhist punk, It's the punk movement can be seen as in the same light. They want weak, manageable people, not strong individuals. And the whole kind of British culture of being the gallant loser. That's also part of the same conditioning. So when you really understand how Nagarjuna and Asvaghosha, especially how Nagarjuna clarifies the meaning of emptiness, it's the opposite from nihilism. Because things are empty, it's worth making an effort. If a thing wasn't empty, if a thing was non-empty, it wouldn't be susceptible to change, so there wouldn't be any point making any effort. It's because everything that happens is empty that making an effort is worth it. And it's worth it in the sense that we get something. This is what these 4 verses are all about. Getting something. It sounds a bit crass and American to our British ears that we're after getting something. But no, we're here. This is what I reacted to in a couple of weeks ago when my friend seemed to express too much of a doubting attitude. To his credit, he sent me an email afterwards and said thank you for kicking him up the arse, which was nice to hear. Because you see what I realised work for me to do is in the direction of giving people confidence. But I can't give people confidence. The gift of confidence comes via the teaching of, in this case, Ashvaghosha, who was he spoke a lot about confidence in Saundarananda, because the Buddha's half brother Nanda was a kind of a bit of a playboy, and he wasn't at all confident in his ability to cut the mustard as a bhikkhu, a forest bhikkhu. And at the end of the story, the Buddha himself has to admit that he'd been worried for a long time whether Nanda would cut it or not, But of course, they're both delighted in the end that Nanda did cut it. So I think it's Canto 12 of Saundarananda. The theme is confidence, or belief, or faith, as it's been translated. But really, it's about confidence, because the Buddha talks about the confidence of the farmer who plants a crop, or the confidence of the guy, the Ray Mears out by the forest, who knows he's going to make a fire if he perseveres, because he knows the method. So that's not really belief or faith. It's a kind of confidence. And there's one line in somewhere in Saundarananda that the greatest gift is the gift of confidence. The greatest taste, the most satisfying taste, is the taste of prajñā. The greatest comfort is being at ease in oneself. And then the punchline is, and the sorriest bliss is the bliss of ignorance. But anyway, the gift of confidence is the greatest gift. So if we express that negatively, the obstacle is doubt. The second of the 10 fetters is doubt. And it's not a virtue, it's an obstacle, it's a fetter. If there is doubt, it's a virtue to recognise it, make a friend of it, if you like, well, you can see it as an enemy or see it as a friend. Either way, it's not something to be fooled around with. If there's doubt there, work is to be done. And in light of emptiness, that work can be successful. I didn't mention that in relation to the verse, I think the middle of the 3 verses at the end of Canto 14 we've just discussed. There's a phrase, kṛt-ārtha sā jñāya. He is to be known as a success. The person who really realises seclusion in the sense of separateness from clinging and conditioning, he is to be known as a success. So it's not all about being a loser, although it is about losing your clinging, losing your objects that you clung to, losing our conditioning, losing attachment to views and so on. There's a lot to lose, but in that losing, the point is to be a winner, to win confidence, to win the first fruit of the noble Dharma, which is entering the stream. So three fetters, or 3 obstacles, 3 fetters that stop us entering the stream are: first, atma-drishti, self-view. Of course, the antidote to that is teaching of emptiness. The second one is vicikicca in Sanskrit, vicikicca in Pali, and that means doubt. And so the antidote to that is confidence, real confidence in what the Buddha taught. Not confidence that he is a teacher who seems to really know what they're talking about, so I'll believe in him. No. It's, you've got your own spade and dug out the meaning for yourself. Going back to the ancient text for corroboration, you found out what really works. You realise that what the Buddha, the 4 noble truths, how true they are. So that nirodha, like in my case, I realise that from studying what Alexander called inhibition. That gave me confidence to understand what the Buddha was talking about, the power of inhibition. However you do it, you understand it in your own experience. Learning in practice, sangaku, as Master Dogen talked about. Then you get that confidence, you gain the confidence. It's not nothing. It's not a thing, but confidence can be real. The doubt is defeated. That's what these verses are about. So that the final 4 verses of Canto 16 need to be understood in the context of everything that's gone before it, which is the Buddha's elucidation of the 4 Noble Truths, culminating in the path to abandon the afflictions, the faults, which are the cause of suffering. So it's a 3-fold path of Shila, Samadhi and Prajñā. Each of those requiring the right kind of effort. So 4 verses, the first 3 of which are in the meter we're looking at, which is the Śikhariṇī meter. Short, long, 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 short, 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 long, long, short, 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 long. So out of those 4 verses, the first 3 are in Śikhariṇī meter, and then the 4th one is in an even longer meter, which the name of which is here is Atidriti, apparently. But we're going to just look at the ones in Śikhariṇī meter. The first of which is 16.95. Canto 16, verse 95. No gaining of what is yet to be gained, certain loss of what has been gained. In that way, contempt for oneself, wretchedness, disdain from seniors, darkness, lack of spirit, and the breakdown of listening, restraint, and contentment. When all this befalls heroes who lack heroic endeavour, a great fall befalls them. So indeed that is the stick, isn't it? He's saying in this verse, the Buddha telling Nanda, not making effort produces unhappy results. So in Sanskrit, I'll try my best to get emphasize the short and the long of the meter. Da dum 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 dum, da 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 da, dum dum da 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 dum. Alabdhasyālābho, niyatam upalabdhasya vigamaḥ. tathaivātmāvajñā, kṛpaṇam adhikebhyaḥ, paribhavaḥ. Tamo nis-tejastvaṁ, śruti-niyama-tuṣṭi-vyuparamo. nṛṇāṁ nir-vīryāṇāṁ bhavati vinipātaś bhavati. So, alabdhasya, of the not gained. Labdha means gained, won, found. So it's that's a verbal root, lab, to gain, to win, to find, to obtain, is going to appear several times over this and the next verse. Just confirming what I was saying before. We're looking here at effort with a view to gaining something, to being the winner. there's that paradox there. It's not all about being a nihilistic loser. That's what we really need to focus on, because the propaganda, what the powers that be want, as they've shown us very clearly with the scamdemic and the vaccine rollout and everything, they want a weak population that they can easily control. Well, fuck that. They're going to get a whole lot of individuals. If the Buddha's teaching of emptiness gets out, they're going to have a whole lot of individuals, every one of them saying, no thanks, we're not complying. That's what they fear. That's why they want a nihilistic understanding of emptiness to prevail. Well, fuck that. But they're going to get a different understanding of emptiness is going to prevail. You bloody watch. Hold my beer. So, alabdha. Labdha means gained, and a means negative. So, alabdha, not gained. Alabdhasya is genitive, of the not gained. Then alabha means not gaining. So, alabdhasyālābho, no gaining of the not gained, no gaining of what is yet to be gained. Niyatam, certain. Upalabdhasya, so labdhasya again means of the gained, and the upa is a prefix which actually you can understand it doesn't need to mean anything. He just needed 2 short syllables. Niyatam upa, the 5 short syllables, and then labdhasya, 2 long syllables. So niyatam upalabdhasya. So upalabdhasya means the same as labdhasya, of the gained. So then vigamaḥ is loss, going away. Vigama means going away. The verbal root is gam, to go. Vigama, loss. So certain loss of what has been gained. So we can understand this in terms of stream entry and confidence being part of stream entry. Stream entry is the first of the 4 noble fruits. The first of the 4 fruits of the noble dharma. So the second fruit is the fruit of one more return. Then the third fruit is the fruit of no more return, and the 4th fruit is the fruit of the worthy state, the worthy stage, I should say, probably better than state, the worthy stage of the arhat, enlightenment, in other words. So implicit in that scheme is that the fruit of stream entry is not subject, is lower than being subject to only one return. So we can gain stream entry and lose it again. And that, which seems to me that I've corroborated many times in my own career. So, for example, confidence, you can get confidence, and you can lose it again if you don't make the requisite effort. It's like use it or lose it. Marjorie Barlow, she said it was a good old-fashioned word, backsliding. In the Alexander work, if you don't carry on with the work, it's not that you sort of just you've attained a certain standard and you'll maintain it. No, you've got to keep working on it. Same with musicians report the same thing. You can't go without practice. Nellie Benoist used to tell the story of some famous musician who, in a concentration camp, who hadn't got his instrument. I think it was a violinist, or it might have been a pianist. But he carried on practicing in his brain, in his mind, even though he didn't have the instrument. And then when he came out of the concentration camp, he was still able to play. But even without his instrument, he'd carried on practicing. So that's the principle we're looking at here. Then the second line, tathaivā. So that's tata means in that way, thus. And then eva is emphatic. Tathaivā, in that very way. Adhyātma-vajñā. So atman means self, and avajñā, jna means no, and ava means downward. So downward knowing, low self-esteem, contempt for oneself. Then kṛpaṇam. Kṛpaṇam means wretchedness. And since we're talking about the noble eightfold path, making effort on the noble eightfold path, I think you can understand kṛpaṇam as being the opposite of arya. So the title of this canto is Arya Satya. I forgot the compound, but Arya Satya is the noble truth. So the wretchedness comes from failing to make effort on the noble path. And then adhikebhyaḥ paribhavaḥ. Adhika means to surpass. I translated this before, the scorn of superiors. Paribhavaḥ means, the first definition in the dictionary is insult. An insult, humiliation, scorn, etc., etc. But just scorn of superiors didn't sound right when I came back to it, studying it the last couple of days. The whole thing of superior and inferior doesn't really seem appropriate, but senior and junior is seems to be more like it. I mean, who's to say who's superior, who's inferior? But who's senior and who's junior, that's more obvious. So I translated paribhavaḥ, disdain. Adhikebhyaḥ is ablative plural of adhika, so it means from, plural, senior, from seniors. So disdain from seniors. So in that way, contempt for oneself, wretchedness, disdain from seniors. These are all things which come from making a lack of effort. Third line, tamo nis-tejastvaṁ. So short, 5 long. Tamo is darkness. Nis-tejastvaṁ is, tejas means fiery energy. So fiery energy, spirit. So nis-tejas means lack of spirit, and tvam means the condition of. So the condition of no spirit. Then long compound with 3 prior elements. Śruti-niyama-tuṣṭi. Śruti means listening, and therefore learning. Because traditionally what you learned it by listening through the oral tradition. Śruti, listening. Niyama, restraint. So yam, the verbal root yam means control, as in pranayama, breath control. Niyama, restraint. And tuṣṭi is contentment, satisfaction. The E of tuṣṭi is long because the final word in the compound has a double consonant, view, vya. So upa means up. Ram, in this case, I'm not sure what the verbal root means. It doesn't mean to enjoy here. It might mean to stop. But anyway, vidyā-ratir means breakdown, loss again, degeneracy. So śruti-niyama-tuṣṭi-vyuparamo is the breakdown of listening, restraint and contentment. And I think those three elements might mirror three elements in the next verse, which we'll come to in a day or two. But the three elements are listening, restraint, and contentment. The breakdown of those three. So listening would be listening to the plan in 1696. Restraint would be probably related to the fourth and fifth obstacle, in particular, of the 10 fetters, which are kama and patigha, sensual desire and anger or resentment. So a breakdown of restraint might be understood in terms of losing the noble fruit, the second noble fruit, the fruit of one return. And then what was the other one? Tuṣṭi, contentment. So the next verse speaks about upashanti, peace. So those are three things which we lose if we don't make effort. See, for example of Shruti, there was a time when I'd memorised the whole of Canto 16 about 15 years ago, and now I found it a struggle to remember even these three verses. My memory's not as good as it was 15 years ago. But if I'd kept on reciting them, those verses every day, then I wouldn't have lost them. So that's just a very concrete example of how what you've listened to, what you've learnt, you use it or lose it. Then niyama. See, niyama relates to what Alexander called inhibition. And we get inhibitory circuits are formed in our normal development as infants. It's especially important in activities like crawling on hands and knees. We form the circuits which will inhibit the symmetrical tonic neck reflex, the cat sit reflex. And as I'm sitting here now, I'm sending my knees forwards and away, which is very much related with a kind of conscious inhibition of that reflex. So it's like, if I send my knees forwards and away, I'm the boss. If I don't send my knees forwards and away, especially if I didn't crawl when I was a baby for long enough and well enough, then the reflex will be the boss. That's what happens in the classroom when a child who's got an immature symmetric tonic neck reflex, if they flex their neck, their hips and knees want to extend. It's like when a baby puts its head on the floor and its bum goes up in the air. So in the classroom, if a child looks down at his notebook and the symmetrical tonic neck reflex is immature, his hips and knees will extend and the poor beggar will stand up unintentionally because the reflex is the boss. So part of the inhibition of that reflex is it's like saying no to that reflex. It's like, that reflex should be quiet, inhibited, not causing noise in the system. So crawling on the hands and knees is nature's way of the brain getting control over that reflex. So the reflex is integrated and it quietens down. If it's not quiet, that leads to ADD, ADHD, and money for the makers of Ritalin if it's not diagnosed truly. But also, the Alexander work is more about conscious inhibition. Not only the reflex work, doing crawling on hands and knees and so on, is more physiological inhibition at a deeper level. But even if you've got a bit of an immature symmetric tonic neck reflex, if you learn what Alexander meant by knees forwards and away, that is very good at helping you be the boss as well. So you're consciously sending your legs out away from the back. So there's a separation of the torso and the legs, which if you don't send the right messages, the big, heavy, muscular legs will pull your back out of its proper coordination. So directing the body up that the Buddha talked about, ujum kayam panidaya, has very much to do not with engineering anything in the spine and those mechanisms of upright posture. It has more to do with sending your knees forwards and away, in my experience. What Alexander talked about, stop doing the wrong thing and the right thing will do itself. So if you want to have nice direction in your back, the main thing for me, and I speak with confidence, having been practicing this now for 30 years, send your knees forwards and away. I can't give anybody that confidence because you can't really understand what I'm talking about unless you actually experience it for yourself and do the work for yourself. But I can honestly say that there's no greater gift than having been taught and having been pointed in the direction of learning what it means to send my knees forwards and away, especially in light of the four main primitive reflexes. See, what I do every morning when I remember, I'm just going to do it now. I'm just going to stop breathing. Knees forwards and away, knees forwards and away. So what I do in that little procedure, which is very traditional, kanki isoku, just means deprive yourself of oxygen for one breath. That's what I did. And then you can, after a while, you can experience the moral reflex as your friend, because as the CO2 rises in the bloodstream, your body and brain is asking you to suck in oxygen. And if you leave the moral reflex to its own devices, it'll be a gasp. Like when I used to smack a baby's bottom to check it was everything was working okay when the baby was born. So every time I do that breathing exercise, the choice is there. You can consciously inhibit. You can feel the gasp reflex wanting to kick in, and you can think, no, I'm not going to do the Morrow gasp. I'm going to just let the air come in through big nostrils in a controlled way. So in a way, you're making the moral reflex your friend there. In a way, the moral reflex is your enemy if you suffer from unduly excited fear reflexes and emotions, as Alexander described. But you can make it your friend as well, because you can realise that it's there. The moral reflex wants to get the oxygen. It doesn't like this buildup of CO2, and so it's sending another kind of alarm signal. And what you're kind of saying, okay, thanks very much, I've got the message, but I'm going to breathe in a controlled, easy way. Kaskani tsuji, let the breath pass through the nostrils softly. That's Fukan Zazengi. And then the bow is related with the baby balance reflex, the tonic labyrinthine reflex. And this is related with the asymmetrical tonic neck reflex, the side-to-side reflex, the baby fencer reflex. And then the espionage related with the bridging reflex. and so sending the knees forwards and away is kind of you don't see any movement there. You see with the breathing, you see a movement of the inhalation. The TLI, you see a movement with the bow. The ATNR with the Saiyu Yoshin Shite, swaying left and right, as it says in Fukan Zazengi. Then the STNR, it's more conscious. I'm inhibiting that reflex simply by thinking knees forwards and away. Thinking, but not as people understand thinking. It's a direction, a letting happen. So that was a digression on the meaning of niyama, restraint. So I do those 4 things every morning as a practice, a reminder. Neck free, head forward and up, spine to lengthen, back to widen, knees forwards and away. Never let a day go by, F.M. Alexander used to say. Never let a day go by without coming back to those directions. Stop doing the wrong thing and the right thing will do itself. Niyama. It's an effort, but it's a preventive effort. Then tuṣṭi, contentment. Those can be understood. Tuṣṭi can be understood as related to perhaps the satisfaction of overcoming the 5 upper fetters, which include inflatedness and pride and ignorance or denial. Because how can we really be content in our practice if we're still exhibiting those tendencies of being puffed up and conceited and still in denial about this and that? Okay, 4th line. Grammar of this is a bit more difficult to explain because it's the punchline of the whole thing, but it refers back to the first 3 lines. So the nṛṇāṁ, nir-vīryāṇāṁ is genitive of nir. Nir means nri, or never sure how to pronounce that R. Nri means man. So nṛṇāṁ, of men. Nir, not. Vidyā, effort. So nir-vīryāṇāṁ, of not effort. So for men, or of men of no effort. Then bhavati, it happens. So I think that means all the previous. No gaining of what is yet to be gained, certain loss of what has been gained, contempt for oneself, wretchedness, disdain from seniors, darkness, lack of spirit, and the breakdown of listening, restraint, and contentment. So it happens, so it befalls, when all this befalls men without effort, or as I've translated it, heroes who lack heroic endeavour. Just to bring out that sense of nir means man, but it also has a sense of a person showing, whether they're a man or a woman, showing manly effort, heroic effort. And virya also is cognate with virility, so it suggests a manly effort. So I translate, when all this befalls heroes who lack heroic endeavour, vinipātaś means a fall, cha and bhavati, it happens. So I've tried to mirror those 2 bhavatis. It befalls. When all this befalls heroes who lack heroic endeavour, a great fall befalls them.